Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack. Back again to bring you everything you need to know about the Primordial Stones. As today, March 23rd, they had about 4 or 5 different hotfixes getting added into the game to buff, nerf, change around all of the things with the Primordial Stones, which is kind of a lot. So in this video, I wanted to go over, for healers specifically, what are some of the strong combinations for healing and, of course, for damage, to be able to outline what is important for you to target, what is important for you to be able to focus on. So really quickly here, there's a whole heap of changes that went on yesterday for all of these today for all these Primordial Stones. Not to get too caught in the weeds with all of these changes, but first let's talk about how you actually get them and acquire them really quickly. When you go into the Forbidden Reach, there's a quick quest line that you have to run around to help your allies, all of that fun stuff. It's really quick and easy to be able to work your way through. The most important part is the Zeskara Vaults, which is north of the Morkut Islet, which again, very northern side of the continent. When you enter into the vault, you need to have vault keys, and then it allows you to open various doors throughout, and then you're able to earn the gems, roll on the gems, and be able to get your upgrades in the process, basically. In order to farm enough keys to be able to get the job done, you could start doing these opening quest lines on your alts and then trade the account-bound keys to your main to be able to sort of front load it. You can also just start running around killing rares. It actually took me maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours or so of farming to get all the keys that I needed. I was also going kind of slow. If you're like a tank or you have a group of buddies, you can go into this Warcraft, this big tunnel here, and just kill random mobs, and you'll get a lot of elemental overflow, which you can then use at the vendors at the Morkut Isle to buy boxes to gamble on more keys. Overall, quick and easy. There's a lot of upgrades and a lot of things you can do to help farm that. But to focus on what's important, the gems, and what you want to be able to do to maximize your HPS. Keep in mind, this is for healers, and specifically from my perspective as Holy and Disc Priest, highly recommend you check out questionablyepic.com, as they are the source for all this mathematics, and they do a great job of providing a lot of theory craft and almost sims, or basically sims, for healers to be able to optimize their gear. So check them out, linked in the description down below. For the numbers, there's 3 gems that you can have in your Annulet. So this one is going to be the Wild Spirit Stone, the Exuding Steam Stone, and the Deluging Water Stone as the highest expected HPS value that you're going to get. You're also able to add the Desirous, which we'll talk about in a second, and there's some other options with the Storm Infused and Indomitable as well. But the Exuding and Wild Spirit Stone, very high priority, and it's really not that hard to be able to farm up the specific items, the specific stones that you'd like. So getting Wild, Exuding, and Deluging should actually be quite easy. Now, what these stones actually are and what they do is very important, because the Wild Spirit Stone on its own doesn't actually do anything. It relies on the healing effects and nature effects of other stones to proc it, to activate it. So nature and healing effects from this, from other gems, will then restore health for your allies. So you, again, need to have those other stones, like the Exuding, where receiving heals a chance to exude steam, restoring health to yourself and 2 allies. That'll also proc the Wild Spirit Stone. Now, the Deluging Stone, when you equip it, abilities have a chance to drench a nearby ally, healing them over time. Again, made sure that this stone actually crit strikes, which is kind of important. The Desirous Stone is an important one in that it actually does quite a bit of damage and healing, and then that effect will then proc the Wild Spirit Stone, because it is a healing effect that you get by dealing damage. So again, it still works with that, and it is also quite a powerful combo. So these 3, the Wild, the Exuding, and Deluging, should be your primary focus for upgrading from a healing perspective. And it's always important to note that when you're in raids or when you're in M+, these rings only have stamina baseline on them. They don't actually have any secondary stats. So you are trading away those secondary stats in favor of these passive healing effects. So it's important to know whether you need to adjust your gear, adjust your secondary stats, whatever it is, that you are going to be losing some stats as well in the process. Now, as I was speaking before about damage and healing with this Desirous stone, it's also important to note that you could also build your Annulet and even buy other Annulets to give you pure damage effects. So what I did personally is I spent the couple extra fragments, which we'll talk about in just a second, to buy another ring so I can just have one ring for damage and one ring for healing, and I don't have to go back and forth between the Forbidden Reach to pop the gem out, resocket it, and go from there. So what I did is I have a second ring option, which has the Desirous still. So I have 2 of the Desirous, one for damage, one for healing. And then I paired it up with the Prophetic Twilight Stone, where your damaging effects from stones trigger one of your healing effects, and vice versa, because that'll help you with the Desirous effect. And I have it socketed with the Storm Infused Stone. So the Desirous Bloodstone, Prophetic Twilight Stone, and Storm Infused Stone I'm messing around with at the moment for a pure damage build. I believe Wowhead also highlighted this build as one of the highest, craziest DPS combinations at the moment. There also were a couple other hotfixes that were happening at pretty much the exact same time. So I also want to be able to highlight 2 other stones that I would recommend testing out and trying out as well. One of which is the Pestilent Plague Stone, where dealing damage has a chance to infect the target with the plague that spreads to nearby enemies. This could be particularly good in an AoE environment like an M+, but especially as a healer, you got to keep in mind that dropping 5, 6, 7% of your HPS with a ring, there's a lot of healing that you're getting out of these secondary stats that you drop. Since rings are so secondary stat rich, it will be a pretty noticeable drop in healing output that you are sacrificing in order to get this. If you were going to do it, I'd really highly recommend as a healer that you test it in a dungeon like Court of Stars, which doesn't have really high healing requirements. But you do have to watch out for something like Talix Flame Wreath, for example. The early part of the dungeon doesn't really require that much healing, but the latter half can be a little scary if your team isn't like bloodlusting on like Talix Flame Wreath or something along those lines. Keep it in mind. I know the Humming Arcane Stone was one of the stones that actually received a very like minor buff, I believe, but it was meant to try to bring everything up towards it. On day 1, it was like bugged and dealing like way more damage than intended. So when it comes to maximizing your damage, I'm messing around at the moment with the Desirous, Prophetic, and Storm. But I would recommend you keep an eye on the Pestilent and Humming, as these can also be very powerful damage dealing tools. And you're not having to break or destroy any of these stones if you want to replace them. The thing to keep in mind with this is you can go straight back to the Marku Isle. Once again, in the Forbidden Reach, or the Marku Islet. It's at the village right here, where you're able to talk to the vendor, you're able to desocket some of these gems and try them out and experiment with them. The biggest thing that you have to keep in mind is how you spend your upgrades, because how you spend your upgrades is something where you might have to just do more farming to make up for it if you're making, say, decisions you might regret later on. One of the new upgrades that they have right now is the... what was the upgrade that they had called? The Unstable Elementium. This is actually how you upgrade your Annulets. So you'll see on mine, I have Storm, Prophetic, and Desirous, but my ring is only item level 411. So the best way to upgrade the effect of your ring is to upgrade those individual gems. So since I have 3 gems socketed, I have to use this Unstable Elementium twice on each gem, by the way, to max each gem out. And so it'll go from a 411, I believe is the baseline level, to 418, and then to 421. And so when all 3 gems are 421, then the Onyx Annulet will then upgrade in its stamina to 421. It's always going to be the average of those 3 gems in the stamina that it provides to you. So keep that in mind. So once again, you're able to earn these from crafting orders with jewel crafters. You can always do public orders because it's a pretty easy recipe to farm up, or personals as well. It does require 10 dormant primordial fragments, which you can either earn by breaking down duplicate primordial gems. So there's like an anvil when you're going through the quest line that they set up for you, and you can break down duplicate gems or gems you just don't care about. I broke down one that requires you to interrupt, for example. Like, yeah, not going to happen. It also does require some Silk Gem Dust. And keep in mind, the quality doesn't matter because the Unstable Elementium is always the same quality every single time. So once you actually do have this Elementium, forgive my bags, then you're able to grab the item and then upgrade a specific gem while it is socketed. So you're able to open it up, grab it, and then start choosing whether you want to upgrade it right here. or maybe you have to desocket it. There you go. And that's going to be how you're able to upgrade your gem, acquire it, and work through the process. It does look for most specs in the game, but definitely for healers, that these gems are going to be your best in slot going into the Aberrus raid. So it's really important to make sure you're farming them up, but also keep in mind, you've got time, as the farming process does not take too long at all, and you can always kind of just use or abuse alts to be able to funnel more keys to your main and to be able to go through that process. It also really helps with the Zascara vaults if you're doing everything in almost one go, because there's a lot of times where you kind of like grab an item from one room and then bring it to the next to solve the puzzle. It's not overly complex in what you have to do, it's just a bit of a grind, and it helps a lot if you remember all the rooms by doing it all in one sitting. So that'd be my recommendation, is farming up, I believe it's like 27 or 28 vault keys, then going in there, completing the whole process in a week, getting your pets and toys and all the other fun stuff out of it, and then getting the maximum amount of your gems. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any other questions, comments, concerns, for the most up-to-date information, I'll be updating my Wowhead guides, and I would recommend checking out Questionably Epic as well, as I'm sure Blizzard, right after making this video, might end up trying to make some changes, but we'll see. Hopefully not. Be sure to subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll catch you all next time.